Hi, so in a previous video we made this thing. Now I know it is a tremendously Heath Robinson contraption, but it was huge fun to make. Now not a lot of people are going to want to do that, and that I can understand. But have a look at this. Okay, I'm sure you know what this is. This is an exercise bicycle. Now exercise bicycles are one of those things that seem like a good idea at the time. Lots of people get them, they use them, and then they sit around for ages not being used, and that's exactly the story of this one. Now this was actually donated to us by our neighbours. I mean, I actually love working here. Our neighbours are just awesome people. As you know, we get a lot of stuff donated by Biotech. This one came from a hydroponics company, three doors down actually, called Straight Up. It had been sitting in the back of their warehouse for ages, and they decided just to throw it out. So I asked if I could have it. They said yes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this so that we can generate some electricity from this. Now this thing obviously is something that lots of people have, and although they look very different, in their basics they're actually all the same. So the video is going to be about converting this so that we can get some power from it by pedaling like crazy probably. First thing to do, well, take it to bits and have a look what's inside. Okay, so I pulled the pedals off and pulled the case off so you can see what's going on. And these things are all pretty much the same. This one's a little fancier than most, but then it is a Reebok. Basically, your pedals are attached to this pulley. The pulley's tensioned with the tensioner right there, and it drives this flywheel. Now, it can only drive it in one direction. If you try to reverse it, there's a ratchet that stops it doing that. It can only drive that way. And it's got this here, which is a brake shoe. Now that brake shoe is being operated by this motor here, and this little motor is controlled by the control panel at the top by the handlebars. And the cheaper versions, there's just a screw thread. You screw that in and out to give you an amount of resistance. On this one, the motor can actually do that, and it can do it actively. So it really can change settings and mimic things like hill climbs, that sort of stuff. But they're essentially all the same thing. Now we're planning on making a generator out of this, not on making a updated exercise bike. So this stuff here, this and this, are really unneeded for us. Then it's going to give us a space here where we can stick our motor stroke generator. Now the one I'm going to use is this one here that I got off a skate board, actually, a motorised scooter, little thing you stand on. And I plan on putting it in there. Now there's a few things we could do to actually take off the power. I mean, there's a drive belt here, so we can connect to that. We could put another cog on here and we can connect to where the pedals go. This is free spinning, so we can't actually connect to this axle because it is a fixed axle. But we can use this rotating edge, so we could put another belt on here and use that to drive the motor. We could put a toothed surface on here and use that to drive the motors. The really simplest thing though is just to use a friction drive. So stick a small rubber wheel in here, and it's going to mimic what this was doing, and that rubber wheel is attached to the motor. Press it against that, and hey presto, we're going to have a generator. Now that's what I'm going to do because it's a really simple operation to do it, but there are, as I say, options on this. If you want to put a chain drive and extra sprocket, you'd put it here on the other side where there's space. Just bang it on there, weld it on, and put a chain on. Me, I'm going to put a rubber wheel on. So I really haven't done a lot to this. I mean, I've gone for the easy option. All I've done really is take out all the extraneous stuff and put a strip of rubber here on the flywheel. Now I happen to have rubber. If you don't, you could use an inner tube. Then for this motor I've found a wheel that fits on the spindle and another strip of rubber around it. And then I've taken this huge chunky bit of wood to make a motor mount. Now the original mount went here, and I've kept the original mount and replaced it with some bolts. So this just slots on there, and it's got a slot in it so that it can move up and down a bit, because this is basically just like the old dynamo you used to put on your bike when you pressed it against your rear wheel and cycled like mad. And that's exactly what we've got here. So that acts as a clamp plate to go down there, the motor fixes in there, and then when the motor's out a little bit it won't engage. You give it a shove, tighten it down, and it'll engage, and we have a friction drive. If you really wanted to go to town on it, obviously there's a ton of things you could do. I did mention you could replace this crank, for instance. You replace this crank with a bicycle crank, you'll have a chain wheel, use the bike chain, attach it to the motor, drive it from the crank. You will miss the flywheel if you do that on this particular one, incidentally. Another one, if you really want to go to town on it, and this would be awesome actually, is to drill the flywheel out, put magnets in the flywheel and then to put a couple of ring coils around it, and you'd have a fantastic machine. But I've gone for the simple option, the thing that I think anybody can do really, because like I say, it was a piece of cake. I stripped it out, removed all the extraneous stuff, got a nice bit of timber, used this bit, and then put rubber around it for a friction drive. So all we've got to do now really is get it back on the floor and see what it churns out. Okay, so the point of this is just to prove it's outputting something. The meter's right there. It's a bit far from the camera, so I'll be amazed if you can read it. But what I'll do is I'll pedal for a bit, then turn the meter around and I'll have a look and we'll see what the actual reading is. But you just want to get something out of it. It's actually surprisingly hard. Let me have a look. Okay, I can get 1.5 volts out of that, no problem at all. And a few milliamps. Oh dear. So, with pedal power, you can produce energy. Now, it's all going to be to do with your setup, obviously, and the power in your legs and how much you're going to pedal for. It's better off having it at the edge, obviously, because we've basically got a big old gear wheel here. We're using friction, we're using that motor, try different things. But that's how I went around doing it, and I think it was a success. Anyway, if you've ever wanted to do that, that's one way of doing it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching.